Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Nady the Coder. So today we're going to be talking about basic operators in JavaScript and some mathematical function. We're going to be playing with some mathematics in JavaScript, how we do maths and JavaScript. Before diving into the lecture, please make sure you watch the previous lectures on JavaScript in order to follow along the whole tutorial. So yeah, let's just dive into the lecture. Operators. We know many operators from school or college. You might have learned it somewhere else, or maybe from tuition or anything. There are things like addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, and so on. So yeah, before diving into the basic mathematics things, let's just learn few terms like unary, binary, and operand. So let's just talk about operand. Operand is what operators are applied to. For instance, let's see we have two numbers, 5 and 2. So there are two operands, 5 and 2. So basically the first number 5 and the 2, these two are operands. And the middle thing that you see here, it's this multiplication sign. And this is called the operator that has been applied to these two operands. Sometimes people call these arguments instead of operands. So it's really basically your preference what you would usually call it, but most of the time people call it operands, and you can just use it interchangeably. An operator is unary if it is a single operand. For example, the unary negation, which reverses the sign of a number. For example, we have a number and I negate the number. I put the negative before the number, so just it's the negation of the number. So that's when we have a single operator on a single operator applied to a single operator. So that's what we call a unary operator. An operator that is binary if it has two operands, just in this above example. So we have two operands and one operator, so it's called binary operator. And the same minus exists in binary form as well. So we can also use plus I operator or negative minus operator, whatever we want. This is basically what we call binary operator. Let's just talk about some basic mathematics in JavaScript. The following math operators are supported in JavaScript: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, remainder, and exponentiation. The first four are easier ones, and we already know what addition is and what subtraction and how to play around these kind of operations. But let's just talk about the remainder and exponentiation. Remainder operator. The result of this operation is the remainder of the integer division of a by b. So what happens is it's basically a division of two numbers. So the remainder is basically division of two numbers. So we divide or take a and divide it by b, and whatever is the remainder of the division, that's the result of this operation, and this is why we call it a remainder. So let's just I think let's look at the example. So we have 5% 2 or remainder 2. So when we operate on this, we'll get a result, and we'll see it in a practical example. Let's just get rid of this old crap and just directly do the console log over here, and let's do, for example, 5% 2. So what do you think we'll get? I think we'll get, once we refresh the page, you can see we are getting 1. So what happens is when we divide 5 by 2, we get the remainder. So that one is the remainder of this operation. So this is what this remainder operation is for. Exponentiation. The exponentiation operator is basically b raises a to the power of b. So this is basically how we it's basically a way to calculate power of a number, and we raise the a to the power of b, and the result of that operation will be it can be done but through the exponential operator. So for example, 2 and 2, so the first number is a, let's say, and the second number is b, so we raise the a to the power of b, and then we'll get our result. Just like here, we can do it simply like this. If we do something like this, so it should be it is equal to 5 into 5, and the result should be 25. So yeah, let's just save it, and when I refresh the page, you can see 25 is expected. So this is how the exponential operator works in JavaScript. Let's just again get back to operators. String concatenation. Yeah, this is a really interesting topic. We can also add two strings using the plus operator. Wow, this is not normal. Usually the plus operator plus sums numbers, but if the binary plus is applied to strings, it merges or concatenates them. So merge and concatenation is basically these two terms, you can just use them interchangeably. So example is, for example, my plus string. So what happens here? So let's suppose we have a variable called first name, and it's John, and then we have a last name, and that's called Doe. So we can just print these two as this. So what happens here if we add these two variables? So what happens if we sum the values of these two variables? Let's just save them and refresh the page. You can see John Doe. So it's basically what happens is if you apply the mathematical plus operation on strings, it just concatenates them. You cannot see the space over here, so just a quick hack or solution would be just to add a space, add another plus, and then add strings and provide an empty space between the two words. And yeah, you can see the correct name over here. So this is how the string concatenation works in JavaScript. Note, if any of the operands is a string, then the other one is converted to a string too. So if we're doing the plus operation over here, and if one of the operands is a string, then the other one is converted to a string too. Let's take an example and see how it really works. So for example, I have a string over here, John, and then I have a number over here, and I want to sum them up. What happens over here? Let's just get rid of this to make it clear for now. So I think theoretically it should add the number as the string and a number, but yeah, let's see what it prints out. So you can see John 1 2 3. What happens is it's concatenated. So even we have so once we have the one operand as a string and the other as a number, then it just concatenates to those two. So yeah, this is how it works in JavaScript. Other automatic operators works only with numbers and always convert their operands to number. So it's just the case of this addition operator. Other operators like division or subtraction or multiplication, they what they do is they convert their operands to numbers. If we provide, for example, string and it's a valid number string, then it will be converted to a number and the operation will be done accordingly. For example, we have 6 minus 2 and then or 6 divided by 2. Let's just look into it with a practical example to do better understand it. So for example, I have number 1. I'll just rename the variables and I call it num2, which is number 2 basically, and I have, for example, 1 2 3, and let's just do it. For example, let's just say we do 5 and 5, and we do num1 and 2 multiplied by num2, and I save it. When I refresh the page, you can see 25 as expected. So since we have the another operator that's a multiplication operator, not just a sum operator, so it converts a num1 variable or the value of it to a number, and it's not treated as a string anymore. So yeah, this is how other operations works in JavaScript. Numeric conversion. Since we know that the plus exists in two forms, the binary form that we used about and the unary form, so we already saw that as well. It doesn't do anything to the numbers, and it just concatenates them and or merge them. But if the operand is not a number, the unary plus converts it into a number. For example, we have plus true and plus this. So what happens over here is, if the operand is not a number, then the unary plus convert, and if we add it in a number to it, then it is converted to a number as well. Actually does the same thing as number, so that's how we convert a number, another value to a number using the number function, but in a shorter way. But yeah, it's not really recommended because it's not really cleaner way to do that. For example, we have 2 plus 3, so simply it will just concatenate them, but if we do plus 2 plus 3, it will just give us 5. Let's just do it and see how it really works. So for example, we have 5 and then 5, and then we do, for example, just simple addition operation on these two strings. It will give us 55 as expected because it's treated as a string and it's just concatenated them. What happens if we do something like this and this, and then save them and just refresh the page, you can see it returns 10 now because we have put an additional plus before the variable names, so it literally converts them to a number. So that is how it works. That's how it works. So it basically does the job of number function and just like that. So it works like that, but in a shorter way. But it's not really readable, so it's not really recommended to do this way. It's just a simple operation. That's why it doesn't seem to be like very clumsy, but if you have a lot of operation, then it doesn't make sense to do it like that way. So yeah, assignment operator. Let's just talk about assignment operator. The operator assignment is also an operator. So assignment returns a value. So we have seen over here that we've been using this operator for a long time. So this is basically also a type of operator which basically assigns a value to a variable. So you can see whatever value we have on the right side, or whatever operation we have on the right side. For example, we have 5 plus 5 or whatever. It is evaluated first and then it's being saved in this variable name. So this is basically the job of this operator. Assignment, we call it assignment. The call x equal value writes a value into x and then returns it. This is what I said. Chaining assignments. Another interesting feature of JavaScript is the ability to chain assignments. For example, we have 3 variables and we can assign the same value at the same time. So for the purpose of readability, it's better to split such code into few lines. So it's not really recommended, but yeah, it's just good to know that we can do it this way as well. Modifying place. So we often need to apply an operator to a variable and store the new result in that same variable. Example is this. So multiply in place. What really means is, for example, we have a variable called 5. Okay, and then we do, for example, let's just make it a number for now, and let's just do num1 equals num1 plus 5. So what it basically does is just takes the value of number, whatever the value of number is. So we are just referencing to that value, the old. Let's just make it 10, for example. So it will just put the 10 over here, and it will just add 5 to it and reassign that value into number, and we will get an updated value. We can just print it, for example, and see what it really returns. So we can see that it returns 15. So this is what we called modify in place. So sometimes we need to do that as well, and apply some operation, do some operations on the existing variable, and not assigning to some extra variable. So notation can be shortened using the operators plus equals and multiply equals. We can also write it in a way, for example, since these two are the same variables, so we can just make it shorthand and just do something like this. So basically this, we can write it in two ways, this and this num1 plus 5. So these two statements are the same, so we can do something like this. Or if we, for example, do the multiplication over here, so we can do something like this. Or if we want to do the division operation over here, then we can do something like this as well. So all of these statements, these two statements on different based on the different operations are the same. You can do, but this is the shorthand property. Most of the time you will see that people are doing this instead of doing this. So if you have same variables and you're assigning it to the same variable after the evaluation or execution, then you can do a shorthand like that, and it will return the same value. So if I, for example, get rid of this and get rid of this, then I'll just see, for example, let's just do 5 plus 5, and I refresh it, I get the same 15. So yeah, this is how it works. It is called basically modify and assign. So basically you can see that it modifies it and then assign it back. So it's basically modify, basically the plus operation, and then assign it to num1, the variable. Available for all operator, we just saw we did it on subtraction and division and multiplication and all of the other operators like remainder and exponential. So it is available for all of the operations. So yeah, we have now increment and decrement operations. So increasing or decreasing a number by 1 is among the most common numerical operations. Incrementation increases a variable by 1. So this is the operation of increasing a variable value by 1. For example, we have a variable that we call counter, and we want to increase the number of that variable by 1. We can just write it like this. This is quickly see how it really looks. For example, we have a variable called num. Its value is 1. So for example, just to increment the value of this, we can, let's just console log it directly, and before that I can do num plus plus, sorry, not n plus plus, but num plus plus. So what it does, it increases the number value by 1, so num plus plus, and then we can just return it over here. When I refresh, you can see it here. So this is basically how it works. It's really neat and simple. So it's basically the same as num plus equal 1, or we can just write it like this, num plus. So all these three statements are the same, but this is the very common way of writing it. Most times people will be using this, and sometimes this, and very rarely this one. So yeah, you can get the same result from all of these. Yeah. Decrement operation. So decreases a variable by 1. We have talked about incrementation. Now we have decrementation, which is the opposite of incrementation. Basically, it decreases a variable value by 1. So let's suppose we have a variable and where its value is 1. We can just do something like this. Let's just comment it out for now. So the value of num should be 0 because it was initially 1. Then what we did is we just decremented the value of num and we returned it. It's just basically 0. And we can write it like this as well, or we can just do it like this and assign it back to num. So yeah, again, the same thing like addition, and we can do multiplication or division like this as well. So yeah, this is how the decrementation works. Note that increment and decrement can only be applied to variables. Trying to use it on value like 5 plus plus will give an error. So you cannot use it directly on variable, the values itself, but just which you can apply it on variables. The operator can be postfix or prefix. Okay, so we have two ways to write it basically. So the operation could be postfix or prefix, written before the variable. The plus plus, it's when it's written before the variable, it's called prefix. When it is written after the variable name, it's called postfix. So the prefix form returns the new value, while the postfix form returns the old value prior to increment or decrement. So there's just a small difference between the postfix and prefix. So if you would like to increase a value and immediately use the result of the operator, we need to prefix. We need the prefix form, or you can see this. So if you want to return the value directly, and the old value, if you want to use the old value, you can just do. Sorry, this is for the new value. You can just do like this. For example, let's just look into this example again. So we have this variable, and if you want to return the updated value, then what it happens here is it says increment it first and then assign it to the variable num and just return it. So what happens here when we refresh, you see 2 instead of 1, and this is basically for the postfix and prefix, and in terms of postfix, we can just put it after the variable name, so it will basically return the old value. So let's just see, and yeah, you can see 1, although we did the num plus plus, but it's not. So it basically returns the number, the value of the num first, the variable num, and then do the incrementation. So that is the slight difference between these two operation, between the postfix and prefix operations. If we would like to increment a value but use its previous value, we need the postfix form. So that's what we did. Example is this that we just solved. So yeah, now we have some other operators that is called bitwise operators. Bitwise operators treats arguments as 32-bit integer numbers and work on the level of their binary representation. These operators are not JavaScript specific. They are supported in most programming languages like C++, Java, and Python, etc. We have like different types of operators, bitwise operators. That's called AND, OR, XOR, NOT, left shift operator, right shift operator, and zero field right shift operator. These operators are used very rarely, and when we need to fiddle with numbers on the very lowest bitwise level. In some special areas such as cryptography, they're useful. So it's not like just like a day-to-day use of that. We don't use it like day-to-day. Just it has few use cases such as cryptography and etc. Now we will talk about comma operator. The comma operator is one of the rarest and most unusual operators, and it's used to write shorted code, so we need to know it in order to understand what's going on. For example, we have this operation and we do 1 plus 2 and 3 plus 2. The comma operator allows us to evaluate several expressions which is separate them with the comma. So we have two expressions over here in example, so 1 plus 2, then the comma, and it's separated by the comma, and then 3 plus 4. The first expression 1 plus 2 is evaluated. There are summed up, so this is the operation that is done first, so it will return 3, and its result is thrown away. Then 3 plus 4 is evaluated and returned as a result. So what happens is you specify different operation and separate them by comma. All of those sequential operations are done, but the results are thrown away. Just the result of the lost operation is returned, like 3 plus 4, so 7 will be returned. The comma operator evaluates all expressions, but only the result of the last one is returned. That's just what I said. Why do we need an operator that throws away everything except the last expression? So sometimes people use it in more complex constructs to put several elections in one line and see, do the operations, but they don't really care about the result of those expression. But for example, they want to increment a value or decrement a value. They don't care about the result, but maybe they would just want the last result. They just care about the last result. But yeah, this is how we can do that. An example you can see, we are assigning 1 to a variable a and 3 to variable b, and we are doing this operation as well and this operation. So in this, a and to b will be returned. This is a for loop. We'll be talking about this in more details in the upcoming lectures, but for now, a equal 1, b equal true, 2, this will be thrown away. This will be evaluated but thrown away. We won't get any result from this, and the result of c will be result, since this is the last operation over here. So yeah, that was basically all about the operators, and I hope that you have learned something new in this video. Make sure that you like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to press the bell icon for future updates. Until then, I'll see you in the next lecture.